Marina Skua Podcast. My name's Marina, I'm a knitwear designer and yarn dyer based in Bath in the southwest of England, and in this episode I have quite a lot of things to show you. My hands have been really busy in the month since the last episode, and I'm quite excited about a lot of the things I've got coming up. So yeah, it's going to be quite a project heavy episode, just showing the things I've been making. So to start off with, I'm going to talk about what I'm wearing. This is the Opula yoke. I'm calling it the Opula yoke because I've made my version as a top, but you can also make it as a jumper or pullover or sweater or whatever terminology you use. So the pattern is released now. If you've watched the podcast previously, you might have seen this when it was in progress and when I had just finished it. I'm wearing mine with quite a bit of negative ease, which means that it's really quite fitted. You can see it's quite close in on the arms, and if I take it off, it's actually stretched quite a bit. When I started making it, there was less negative ease than there is wearing it now. Because those of you who follow me on Instagram or are subscribed to my newsletter will know that I'm expecting a baby early next year, and so I am a different shape to when I started making this, but I'm really glad that because I chose to make a shorter version, so it sits just on the high hip there for me. My waist is quite short compared to my height. I'm quite a tall person, but all of my height is in my legs. That sits nicely there, and then I've got a high-waisted skirt which is sitting above a bit of the bump there. So the yarn I used is my Mendip 4-ply, which is a local yarn from, the wool is from a small farm on the Mendip Hills, not far from where I live, which I hand dye. So the body colour is beach, named after the Copper Beach, and the contrast colour is teal, which is named after the teal ducks on Chew Lake. Both of these are on the Stormy base because the yarn has two coloured bases, so there's a white base and a naturally beige base, and I dye the same colours on both, which means that you get nice colour pairs. These are both on the Stormy base, which is the coloured one, and that gives a nice sort of slightly heathery, tweedy effect, and slightly moodier colours. A bit of news on that. The Mendip Stormy base, as it is now, is going to be discontinued. And so I'm now getting to the point where I'm dyeing final batches of it, and after that there will be no more. That is because of the composition of the flock that I get the wool from. Basically they have a few different breeds, and they have a lot of the colour comes from the Shetland sheep in the flock. They mostly have Shetlands and Romneys and crosses of those, but there are also some blue-faced Leicester and Teeswater genetics in there. And given, dominant and recessive genes and things, they now have a lot fewer of the warmer brown colours in the flock. So I'm going to be replacing the yarn. It will be the same weight and spec and everything, but I'm going to be shuffling up the Mendip range once I get back from maternity leave at some point next year. But just a heads up, if you like the Mendip Stormy yarn as it is, then what is in the shop now is likely to be what is available. So if you do want to get your hands on some, I'd say now would be the time to do so. And I do still have a little bit of undyed left, so if there's a colour you're particularly keen on but it doesn't seem to be in stock, just send me a message or something and I'll see if I can get a batch out of it for you. So yes, this one is in Mendip 4-ply. I've made it with the cropped sleeves, quite a short body, and quite a tight fit, but you can go up a size for a bit of positive ease, and there's a version in the pattern for long, like standard length sleeves, and that will mean that you can wear it as a more standard jumper fit. And yeah, I think, well, it's a pattern I'm really pleased with. It took quite a long time to come into being, just because of working on lots of different patterns at different times, but I'm really pleased with the response it's received so far. It's lovely to see versions that people are making in all sorts of different colour combinations. It's one of my very favourite things, is seeing how people take a design and with the choices they make when knitting it, they make it their own. It's really lovely to see. So thank you to those of you who have bought it already and knitted it. And if you would like to make it, I'll put links in the description box below to my website and Ravelry, where you can buy the pattern. Another thing I'm wearing is, not going to be able to show you all of it, but this is a very quick skirt I made. It's got an elasticated waist and just a belt loop at each side. It's actually a floor length skirt. I was at the point where I needed some things that fit me, and the pile of things in the corridor upstairs going into the Marina can't wear this anymore, so it needs to go in the attic, is getting quite big. So I needed just a few more things that I could wear. This is actually an old linen tablecloth, which I have dyed lots of times with various plant dyes. And so it's very old linen. It's got a nice sort of damask pattern on it that's really subtle. It's not neat. There are patches where the dye has taken unevenly, but it's really comfy and I really love the colour. And if you're interested in how I've made it as a very simple rectangular skirt with an elasticated waist, I made a video on the process on my Patreon page. And yeah. So yes, I'm now going to show you a few things that I have finished making that are coming up soon. This one is coming up very soon. In fact, well, if you are watching this on the day that I'm putting it live, this will be released tomorrow. If you are watching this later on, then there's a chance some elements will have sold out because they tend to go quickly. But this is one I'm very excited about. So those of you who have been following for a while know that I've worked with Harriet of Wildwood Stitches a couple of times before on collaborations where she makes a bag and I dye yarn to coordinate with it. We both love autumn and autumn colours, and so we wanted to do something to celebrate that. So she has made these gorgeous project bags. They're a great size for a pair of socks or a hat or a smallish shawl, I guess, in lightweight yarn. And they're so beautifully made. I've said it lots and lots of times before. Harriet is by far my favourite maker of project bags because she does everything to such an incredible standard. This on the bottom is Harris tweed, so that is wool tweed woven by hand on the Isle of Harris. And then it's really nice quality printed cotton over the top section, and then a coordinating, I don't know if you're going to be able to see in there, yeah, coordinating printed cotton on the inside, and you've got the little label there saying that it's genuine Harris tweed. They're beautiful bags. She's got her little logo on a wooden button there, and I love them. Got a cute little hedgehog. So we're calling these the Hibernate sets. So there is the project bag by Harriet and a coordinating skein of Mendip DK yarn by me. So this is yarn that is very, very autumnal in colour. It's got some lighter orangey shades in it, and then some that get more into the brick red. It's got quite subtle shifts in colour, and that's exactly the kind of variegation that I really love working with. So as well as the skein of yarn and the project bag, this time I have designed a hat to go with them. This is the leaf nest hat, and we really wanted to just convey that idea of being really cosy and curling up as the weather gets chillier. And as we've had quite a lot of storms recently, curling up inside somewhere really warm and cosy really feels like the thing to do. So this hat is made using this yarn, so that you can see how the yarn knits up. This hat is size 2, so if I show you on my head, I have a pretty average sized head, so this is how it fits on me. There is also a smaller size, which would work for people with smaller than average heads, and a larger size for people with quite big heads. The larger size requires more than one skein of yarn. I just want to make people aware of that. We wanted to include something that was a single skein project, but there's only so much you can get out of one skein. So if you have a small to average sized head, one skein of yarn will serve you beautifully. So you can probably see it's got some cabling and some very simple lace details, and then goes up into what I hope you can see as some quite nice crown decreases. I like a nice bit of crown shaping. And it's a really fun knit. It's just very simple cables and lace, so it's quite easy to keep track of the pattern, and quite a quick project. So yes, these will be going live tomorrow, so that is Friday the 22nd? Yes, 22nd. And if you want to make sure that you get some, please do sign up to my mailing list. I will have some available, as will Harriet in her shop. We'll have the sets, which include a PDF copy of the pattern, as well as there will be a handful of individual skeins for people who want to top up and buy more than one skein, or if you just really want a skein of the yarn, then that will be possible too. If it is long in the future and these things are long gone, then the hat pattern will still be available on my website and Ravelry. So yes, that is those ones. I'm very excited about them. It's all the cosy autumnal feels, and I hope that you like them too. Now next up is a couple of things that I showed in the last episode that are also due to be released soon, and this is the Placatum Hat and Mittens. Last time I think I had finished the hat and was working on the mittens, and these are a set that are going to be released towards the end of next week. I do have a lot of pattern releases coming up because I've been working quite hard on designs lately, so they are going to be coming thick and fast for a little while, just because I'm trying to queue up quite a few things before I end up going on leave, just to make sure that I've got lots of nice things out there to tide you over while I'm a bit absent. So these are the Placatum Hat and Mittens. The hat is a nice cosy one. I'm really feeling the cables at the moment. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really loving them. And this is unusual because I generally don't really work much with pink, but this is quite a dark, sort of dirty pink. it's one that I'm quite keen on. And so the mittens have matching cable pattern to the one that's on the hat, and they're fingerless ones, and I've done them so that you have a nice section of ribbing here, which means that you still have your fingers available for like using phone and other things, but you can also fold them back so that you have better use of your hands to free things up completely. And I put a fairly long wrist on them because I tend to wear quite short sleeves. I have long arms, and I like to keep my cuffs out of things when I'm working and stuff. So I tend to wear a sort of bracelet length sleeve, and so having nice long cuffs on things like gloves and mittens means that that fills in that gap quite nicely. So yes, these are coming out next Friday. I just really like how cute they look together. I'm really pleased with the cable pattern. They're called Placatum because of the viburnum placatum, which is a type of shrub. In the summer it has beautiful white flowers. In the autumn, so round about now, it has beautiful red foliage. And they're called placatum because it's the Latin word for pleated. And when the leaves are new and just opening up, they're really crinkly, almost like a crinkle cut crisp. And the sort of ridged cable pattern on the back of the hands, on the mitts, and on the hat sort of reminded me of those ridgy leaves. So yes, these ones are knitted with two of my yarns held together. I used Mend It 4-ply, so the yarn that is in this top. I used the rose stormy colour, and I held it together with a strand of Kaya Baby Alpaca, which is my very fine, very soft alpaca yarn. And I've got some additional colour combinations to show you, because I really love combining together two strands of yarn. I think it's something that's become quite trendy at the moment, especially with things like using a silk mohair. But I really like the alpaca because it gives a bit of a halo. This is Wakaya alpaca and not Suri. Suri has a much longer, sort of more silky mohair-like effect. This is Wakaya, which, because it's baby alpaca, is just gloriously soft. And it's got a little bit of a shine to it, and it just holding it together with a much more rustic, matte, lofty yarn gives a really lovely fabric. And so combinations that I think are particularly nice. This is Mend It 4-ply in Bloom on the Stormy base, and this is Kaya Baby Alpaca in Cassiopeia. And so where you've got a very slightly warmer colour on the alpaca and it's just a little bit darker, you'll get a similar effect to here where you've got a pink and then a slightly darker pinky red held together with it. But obviously overall the effect will be quite lighter and yellower. So that's a really nice pairing. Then one of my test knitters has used Mend It 4-ply in teal on the Stormy base, which is the one that's in the yoke of this jumper, and held it together with Atalanta, which is very slightly more sort of grey-green, but they're quite similar in colour. It's a little bit darker. And that has turned out completely beautifully, and I've been wanting to make something in this colour combination for quite a while. But we'll have to wait until the replacements for the Mend It 4-ply Stormy show up, which won't be for quite a while yet. So yes, teal and Atalanta, beautiful combination. There are also variegated colours on the alpaca, and I think holding a variegated colour together with a solid colour can be really, really pretty. So this one is Hippolyta, which I really love as a colour. It's got sort of dark, almost purpley blue, going into a teal, going into tiny bits of a zingy green. And those held together would be really pretty, because I generally find that holding a variegated yarn with a solid colour yarn, if you just make sure that the colour of the solid colour yarn is sort of in the variegation somewhere, it means that the shifts of colour in the variegation will sort of blend in and out, so you'll have just little pops where the colours contrast a little bit more, and I think it can give a really beautiful effect. And then now a couple of examples of, so this is Cassandra on the Kaya Baby Alpaca, which is definitely a little bit darker and a tiny bit cooler than this, which is Plum on Mend It 4-ply on the Sunny base. So those will work together really nicely if you like the purples, but if you wanted to go for a slightly more interesting combination with the variegation, you could use something like Persephone, where you've got the purple in the variegation that picks up, and then you just have these little pops of sort of burnished goldy orange, which I think would be really, really pretty. So those are some suggestions for combinations there. You can of course also substitute yarn and make them out of just a single heavier weight yarn. I'm always up for people substituting yarn, because you know, I like people to work with what's available locally to them. If you have access to my yarn or whatever yarn I'm using and would like to try it out, then yay. But also substitutions welcome whenever you want to. So yes, these will be released next Friday. And again, if you want to hear when new patterns come out, sign up to my newsletter, which there's a link on my website. There should be a pop-up form on there, or just a little bit in the footer. And I don't send newsletters super frequently. They'll be slightly more frequently than usual at the moment, just because I'm releasing lots of things. But even then, it's less than once a week, and it's usually more on a monthly sort of basis. So those are the designy things, and I also have a couple of things which I couldn't resist making, because I have been so busy working on designs and various things. There are also more designs that I'm working on that I'm not showing because they're for magazines, or they're for things that aren't quite ready to be revealed yet. But in between those things, I have made a couple of teeny tiny cardigans for my impending little one. I haven't used a pattern for this one, and the yarn is not one that is available commercially. But it's just got a little cabley detail down the front there. And it's just so much fun. It's so quick to make. I still need to put buttons on it. But yes, nice olivey green one there. And then nice one with little variegated yarn for the main body, and then a little bit of solid coloured yarn for the trimmings. And again, this one needs buttons. I need to go through my misc drawer and try to find suitable buttons for these. But you know, it's not quite urgent yet. But yes, I'm excited that I'm going to be having a winter baby, and therefore we'll be able to bundle it up in some very cute woolen things. For this one I did use a free pattern on Ravelry, and yeah, it's fairly straightforward, but I don't knit raglands as much as I would like to. And so yes, project details for those will be below, although they won't be hugely useful because they're not yarns that are available. In fact, I didn't even talk about the yarns for these ones. These are very, very old colourways that are long discontinued on bases that I don't dye on anymore. This colour was called Tiger, as in like boreal snowy forest. And then I can't remember what the grey was called, because these are colours that I dyed many years ago, and just had some leftovers from another project that I made years and years ago. And so the baby projects are great for using up little bits of yarn. And then I've got a couple more knitting projects to show you, and then a spinning project. And yeah. Now the next project I'm going to show you is one that has been in progress for what feels like literally forever. I have been working on it for, I checked the other day, a year and a half. And before that the yarn was other things that I frogged a few times. So I have been working with this yarn for a very long time, and I'm quite excited that I'm getting to the stage where it's actually going to be something. So this is a cardigan in progress, so we don't have sleeves yet, but we do have an entire body, which is very exciting because the sleeves, you know, they're just an annoying stage in between me and a cardigan. And what I wanted with this one was something that was a fairly sort of classic cardigan, but with some interesting structural details. So it's bottom up. I'm, you know, working flat for all of the body and then splitting for the underarms and then working the back and front separately. And then I've done quite a wide button band. And you can't really see, yeah, I think you can see that okay. And I've got these sort of ridge details coming along the button band, and those will also feature on the sleeves. So if I just chuck it on, so you can see how it's fitting. This is once again something that I'm going to need to put buttons on, and I might have to buy buttons for this one. I just feel like I need more cardigans in my life, and I've been saying this for a long time. So I do have a couple of cardigan projects after this one queued up, which I will be allowed to start once this is finished and off the needles and I'm able to wear it. And so, which side are the buttonholes on? I wear a lot of men's clothes, which means that I never know what side my buttonholes are on because there isn't any sort of muscle memory to it because they swap sides. So yeah, it's going to be sort of like that. V-neck, because always V-necks for cardigans. I am aware that crew necks exist for cardigans. I do not accept them. And then I'll be picking up for the sleeves and working those full length. And I'm just really pleased with it. I just like that it's got, you know, we've got some ribbing just coming up the side there. It's just got these simple structural details which add a little bit of interest without being fussy, and will hopefully mean that it will go with pretty much everything that I own. So yes, the yarn is Erica Knight British Blue 100. The colour is Cloak, which is just a really, really lovely navy, and it's beautifully soft, and I love everything that Erica does. she actually had her head over my shoulder while I was buying this yarn, because I met her at a pop-up quite a few years ago. And later that day I attended a talk that she did and had a bit of a chat with her, and it was one of the things that really inspired me to take this business seriously and give it a real go. And so, although, you know, she probably doesn't remember me, but Erica Knight have been massively influential in my business as it is now. And so it's really, really lovely to be working with her yarn. And I'm looking forward to getting sleeves on that one and being able to wear it, because I think cardigans in the upcoming months are going to be a lot more practical for me. And then once I've done that, I have two things that I want to cast on with yarn that I already have. One is the Pinky Brownie hand spun that I've shown quite a few times in the podcast, because I was working on that for a fair while. And another is a sort of brickish red, pretty much this colour, Rauma Phenol Gun, which, yeah, they're both going to make exciting cardigans. I sort of know what I'm going to do with them already. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. One last knitting project. This one is alpaca from the same alpaca farm that I get the fibre for my Kaya baby alpaca from. So it is beautifully soft and fluffy. I'm holding it treble because it's quite a fine yarn. And this one is a commission for the owner of the farm. I very, very rarely do commission knitting that isn't for design publications. Generally because it's often just not worth my time. But this is a special exception. So this is the early stages of a gents tank top, so sleeveless v-neck jumper. And so this is just stockinette that will keep me going between other projects, probably for the rest of the autumn. And with this one I have to I'm knitting at a fairly dense gauge with the 3 strands held together, and alpaca doesn't have any stretch to it. And so while I'm knitting this, I'm just having to be quite careful with my wrists and keep an eye on them and make sure that I don't work on it for stretches, too long stretches in one go, because the lack of elasticity just puts a little bit more strain on my wrists. So I'm just keeping an eye on things. If you tend to knit for long periods, keep an eye on your hands and wrists. Make sure that you take breaks. It's very important. And the last project I'm going to show you is quite a fun one. This isn't knitting. And won't be knitting actually. This is a spinning project. And so these yarns are what I'm calling Shoddy Yarn. They are completely recycled from scraps. You can't really see what's going on in there because it's a very old plastic bag. Literally just thousands and thousands of ends. These are from both my own projects, so there are quite a lot of wall pens in there from when I do weaving, and from various knitting projects. And there are also quite a few that were given to me by local friends. So my friend Alex, who is also a knitwear designer, and a Yarn Story, one of my local yarn shops. They just kept their ends for me for ages. And so, yeah, all of the tiny bits that are too short to do anything with, so things like ties from skeins where the yarn shop wind up balls for people, they take the ties off and the customer doesn't need those, so they, instead of just chucking them away, they put them in a bag for me for a while. So each time I went to knit night, I would have another little baggie of weird end bits of yarn. And I said for ages that I was going to do something with them, and have never got round to it, but am now at the point where I am reconstituting them into quite chunky yarn. And it's really fun. It's not the quickest of processes, and I'm not aiming for perfect yarn, so there are still bits of, like, identifiable bits of yarn in here that haven't been completely shredded and recombined. But the idea with this is that I will eventually make enough to use as the weft for sort of like a yarny equivalent of a rag rug. And so they're quite chunky. I'm spinning them with quite high twist, so they will hopefully be fairly strong, because they will eventually be underfoot a fair bit. And at some point, not at all soon, because I still have a whole load of spinning to do, I'll be weaving with these. And it's quite a fun project, and it's sort of fairly accessible in that it uses materials that would otherwise be thrown away, which, if you've been watching for a while, is a concept that really excites me. It's making something from what is effectively considered nothing. But if you have enough of it, you can turn it into something useful, and I really like that. So if you're interested in the process, I have a video up on Patreon where I demonstrate how I process the yarn, how I process the yarn scraps and then turn them into new yarn. It would be quite possible to do completely with hand tools, so not particularly expensive equipment or anything, and it's a little bit slow, but quite satisfying to do. So yes, those are most of the things I've been working on over the past month. There is also a load of other stuff going on in the background. Life is quite busy at the moment, and I'm hoping that I've got lots more exciting things coming for you over the next couple of months. And so yes, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and all the links for everything I've talked about will be in the box below. If you want to keep up with me in between episodes, you can always find me on Instagram and my newsletter. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I'm going to leave you with some footage of a recent walk we went on at sunset at Chew Valley Lake, which is fairly local to me and it's a beautiful spot. So until next time, bye bye.